So what, if anything, can you say about, kind of about that piece about keeping, about holding ourselves, frankly, accountable for what we said we were going to do? And, whether it's the process or whether it's the, changing the environment, the political environment around that, like what should people think about when they're doing that piece specifically of it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think this does fall into the bucket of oversight, but not the oversight people think of. It's not the hearing where you scream at the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
That, like, once you're at the point of screaming at the bureaucrats, you've lost and we've lost and the public has lost, right? Oversight in the sense of building relationships with the agencies and departments that have to implement your laws and policies and building trust with them. There's a very, there's an extreme lack of trust, especially in Congress, but I think this is true in states and cities as well. To say, no, we really actually want you to talk to us about how this is going. And most importantly, we want to hear about the barriers. What is keeping you from being able to do this? Because almost always, like what they'll say to me, like they don't want to say it to the, to electeds, is what's keeping us is the other bill that you gave us. Not that it's just competing for time, but like all of these other things that you've asked us to do over time that are the guardrails and the safeties and you put in a whole bunch of laws around, procuring from only certain kinds of vendors for sensitive. Well, guess what? That adds months to our processes. Is that more important? Or is it more important to get this thing done that you gave us just now? And if we can actually get trust in that dialogue and you go, oh yeah, well, actually, I kind of do want you to deliver on that. So can we actually maybe go back and think about this, procurement thing or this other thing? Nobody can do everything. And you're only going to know how your bureaucracy is bogged down if you actually build the relationship and start to listen and ask, not why haven't you done this in time, but what is holding you back and how can we remove barriers for you? And that has to happen long before the big failures that you're yelling at people about. I think it's also important to say in this time of Doge and the incredible animosity that certain folks are showing to public servants,
Yeah.
that the biggest thing that you can do as an elected official is raise up and thank bureaucrats when they do something good. I'm not saying like randomly do it, though, like random hugs are probably really valued right now.
Right.
But I told these stories in my book, Reading Code for America. I'm sorry, Recoding America. Code for America is my old nonprofit. There's one woman in particular, her name is Yadira Sanchez, who's in chapter 10 of the book. And she's just a badass. She is at the Centers for Medicare Medicaid Services. And she is seeing this sort of cascade of rigidity that we call it, where, this law needs to be implemented, but they're starting to implement it in a very rigid way, which is going to get a very perverse outcome from what the lawmakers intended. And so she sort of fights and goes, fights the lawyers and fights the policy team and says, we've got to do this in a way that's user-centered, that's going to work for people. In this case, it's doctors. And she wins, and they ship this implementation of this law, MACRA. The implementation is on time, it's under budget, and doctors, instead of fleeing the program, keep calling to say, like, I must be on the wrong website. This is too easy to use. This is great. I have now greater trust and faith in Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services because of this fantastic program. But like, people would say to me, you have this wonderful woman, Yadira Sanchez, who you outline in the book. She must get so much praise. Or they would say, she did things that sounded maybe not quite exactly what Congress had told her to do. Isn't she going to get fired? Well, if you like what Yadira did, which was have an opinion, which was let's make this work for users, and fought to make this program better, the number one thing you could do is find someone like her and give her an award or have a hearing that's about how great a job she did and how great a job her team did.
Yeah.
Because all bureaucrats ever hear is criticism. And imagine, you want to, like, why are bureaucracies risk averse? Imagine a world in which you only ever got feedback that was negative.
Yeah.
That creates risk aversion. think about the dynamics of risk aversion and be the change you want to see. Do the things that reduce the risk aversion of the bureaucracies that implement your laws. And most of that is about creating relationships and lifting up the kind of behavior, well, finding and lifting up the kind of behavior you want to see, and thanking public servants for the work they do.